All right, folks, you're joining us for Meet Music Knoxville. I'm your host, Nick Horner. I get together with musicians that I've never met or haven't had significant conversations with, I guess, in this instance, here in Knoxville. And we have a great time just getting to know each other. And you're about to hear an hour of great conversation, maybe average conversation. Hopefully we hit average. I feel like we'll hit average. Average conversation with Stirling Walsh. Sterling, say hi.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me over.
Oh, yeah. Before we kick off, let me say some thanks. We need to say thank you to Hutch and Howard Realty of Keller Williams and Raven Records and Rarities. I think those are the sponsors these days. Thank you guys so much for sponsoring Real Knoxville Music. We couldn't do this without you. It means so much to have your support, so thank you so much. And without further ado, we were chatting moments ago before I hit the record button. Sterling and I met through Jessica Watson. I think that's how we first connected.
I believe so, and then that Build-A-Band.
The Build-A-Band thing. Yeah. We briefly said hi, but I've been hearing your name for a long, since very early on when I moved here, because I moved here in late 2020.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but bass player, a banjolele player.
Yep.
We've got a lot of mutual stuff to talk about with that.
I play a lot of instruments, but bass guitar is definitely my favorite. And it's pretty much out of pure laziness. It requires less hauling of gear.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you plug straight into the amp kind of bass player?
Yep.
Good man.
No pedals and nothing like that.
Dude, I made the mistake of just start again. Like recently, I was probably a good 8 years without any pedals whatsoever. I hate my life for it. But
it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Like, once one of those little wires starts acting funky, the whole thing's messed up. So yeah. I just like carrying a bass guitar, my little tiny amp, and a cable.
Yeah. What kind of amp do you use?
Well, it depends on the venue. I would say bar gigs around here, I use a little Fender Rumble, a little practice amp.
Oh, yeah.
And it works great. And then for like festivals and like bigger shows, I've got a Galen Kruger, I think that's what it's called, with a Hartkey 410 cab. That one sounds a whole lot better, but yeah, and it's just more powerful, I suppose.
Yeah. Man, I love those GKs. I don't even know how to pronounce it. I just call them the GKs.
I don't know if I pronounced it right or not.
You know, that's how you evolve as a bass player. You learn how to pronounce that name fully. It's like Pokemon, you know?
Yeah.
You'll level up once you learn how to say it. So, man, so from Knoxville?
No, I grew up in Kingsport, Tennessee, which is northeast Tennessee, up on the border of Virginia, in the Tri-Cities area. Yep, grew up in Kingsport. Went to college in Murfreesboro at MTSU. I studied sociology and American music.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What was your primary instrument when you were doing that?
I would say at that point in time, my first instrument was percussion. I was in like high school drumline and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah, and so I would say maybe in college, that's when I started playing the bass guitar. But yeah, my first instrument was percussion, and sort of taught myself guitar a little bit from there. And then, yeah, in college, was playing the bass primarily, and have been since then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, do you find that that like growing up as a percussionist, how did that affect your playing as a bass player, ukulele player, musician in general? Did it do you feel like it changed your? Well, I guess you never knew anything different. You just were a percussionist who went off and did other stuff. But I'm just curious if that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it changed anything, but I think that rhythm is obviously one of the most important parts about playing music.
Yeah.
So it sort of, you start off with a pretty solid foundation, being a drummer first.
Yeah.
One of my friends, Nathan Carter, he's probably the musician that I've played with the longest in my entire life, because he was also in high school drumline and stuff with me. Also went to college with me. We had some college bands. There's been a little bit of a 10-year hiatus, but most recently he's moved back to Tennessee. He went to Musicians Institute in Los Angeles and things like that. But he recently moved back, and with him, like, there's something that could probably never be replicated in life than playing music with someone like that for so long, having that metronome beaten into your head at a very young age. And so I've recently had him coming down to Knoxville. He's up in Kingsport, but he's recently joined Electric Darling and Roman Reese, and done a few other shows besides that. And it's weird. Somebody that you've played music with so long like that, there's a kind of telepathy.
Yeah. And does he play drums and percussion still, or he switch instruments?
He's a drummer. I mean, he would be really embarrassed for me to say this, but I think that he's the best musician I've ever met in my entire life.
Wow.
Yeah. But I guess I just say all that. Just, I don't know how many years I have left in my life, but I don't think that relationship can be replicated ever.
Oh, yeah.
We can look at each other and just automatically know what we're thinking, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing when you're lucky to have developed a relationship like that with another musician. I feel like those are they end up being rare for like people who are out in, like pros, because you end up, I'm sure you slot in with a lot of different groups, but it's cool that you've been able to maintain like that long slow burn,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Man, that's awesome.
I'll have to introduce you to him sometime. He's great.
Yeah, that's my secret agenda with this show, is just to network my way through every musician within a 200-mile radius.
Okay.
Just by virtue of this, monthly thing. Man, that's awesome. And what other instruments do you play? Because
I try to play the piano a little bit. It's nice to have one around. That's for sure. Obviously, ukuleles and guitars and I would say string instruments. I'm definitely not a fiddler or anything like that. I'm definitely not a blowy horn instrument guy either. That's sort of foreign to me. But I'd like to start learning saxophone. I think that would be really cool. In fact, the only other musician I know of in my entire extended family was my grandfather. And he played the saxophone, clarinet, and harmonicas. So I inherited some of those instruments. I've got them around. He's got one really interesting one. It's called a C melody saxophone. So you don't have to transpose. You can read piano music in C, because I think maybe an alto, I may be getting this wrong, but I think an alto is like tuned to B flat or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and it's silver, and so it's like in between the size of an alto and a tenor, and they're kind of rare. And I wouldn't say that they're rare, but this one in particular was manufactured in 1914.
Wow.
I don't know. I think that's kind of cool. I'd like to try to figure that out.
I hope it
someday.
sounds good. You know, wouldn't it be such a bummer if you got it and you're like, oh, it's this great, precious thing, and then you got to fix it up and it just sounds like a fart.
Yeah, well, yeah. I had one of my woodwind friends sort of check it out just because it's so old, and it's got leather pads for the holes and stuff, and apparently it's in perfect shape. And it sounded great when he played it, at least. It was always really funny. My granddad died when he was 97.
Wow.
Okay. And I remember being a kid, and at that point, I suppose he was probably in his late 80s or something, and he would go do gigs at the nursing homes and with a couple of his friends, and he would always say, well, I got to go play for the old people, when in fact he was probably at least 10 years older than most of them there.
Seemed like a funny guy. Did he play out a lot? Like, was that like a part of his...
Yeah, no, he played his entire life, and he was born in 1913, I believe. So he grew up playing all that. What's it called? Like
trad jazz kind
like
of like
swing,
the early
kind
swing,
of.
yeah.
Da 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 da. That kind of stuff.
Have you checked out the listen to the Knoxville session stuff, the St. James Hotel stuff?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, this was before you moved here, but Matt Morlock actually put on a festival. I believe it was in 2016 or so.
Would have been the 90th anniversary of it?
Well, it was after that those recordings were like officially released.
Oh, like the Bear Family Records, the big box?
Yes.
Yeah, I actually have that inside.
It was called the Knoxville Stomp Festival.
Yep.
And one of my bands, the Jug Stompers, we got to play at the Bijou, sort of headlining it, and it was really cool because I don't know if you know Paul West from WDVX, but he's a big collector of vinyls, for lack of a better term. I don't know if they're 75s or whatever, but also he's got one of those Victrola wax cylinder things, and so they did that. We got to record into one of those, which was
cool.
That was really cool. It's so weird how that actually works. It's just picking up the vibrations and it's scratching into the wax, and then you turn it around and play it back.
Yeah.
And you're playing into this gigantic horn. But anyway, we did a lot of those Knoxville session songs for that show. We got to play with Dom Flemings from Carolina Chocolate Drops.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. One of the ones I really like from that, I believe it was from the Knoxville sessions, was called Toodalum Doo. Do you know that one?
I don't know.
I love my toodalum doodalum. Can't do without my toodalum doo. I got to go back to Baltimore and leave my toodalum doo.
No.
Yeah.
Dude, it's funny. Because it's 4 CDs, you know, when they put it out, or at least when Bear Family Records put it out. And I was like, this is too much. So I went through one day and I just ripped it all into one CD of the stuff that I immediately thought was good. So a quarter of that material I'm very familiar with. Mm-hmm. Apparently it wasn't Toodalum Doo.
I think I'm right about that, but I'm not totally sure. We need to get somebody like Wayne Bledsoe, some kind of East Tennessee music historian out here to verify that.
We'll phone him in. It'll be like Jeopardy.
Yeah.
Or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
You've heard of Carter's Fold, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So one of my bands, Knox County Jug Stompers, we had the opportunity to play up there, and that's near Kingsport, where I'm from.
Huh.
It's very historic. Obviously, the Carter family.
Yeah.
You know, they wrote You Are My Sunshine.
Yeah.
You know, like some of the most recognizable songs in the world. And we got to play up there, and that was a big honor. When I was in high school, I took a couple guitar lessons from a guy named Jerry Hensley, who lived right next to the Carter's Fold, and he was apparently Johnny Cash's guitar player throughout the 70s.
Wow.
Yeah, and when we were up there, this was less than a month ago, I was asking everyone there, like, you guys know a guy named Jerry Hensley? And everyone's like, no. But then, like, the woman that, like, introduced us, sort of the host of the show, she's a descendant of the Carter family. Can't remember her name. I asked her, and I hadn't, you know, I grew up there. My mother was from Southwest Virginia.
Whereabouts?
Norton, Wise area.
Okay.
It's about an
What
hour
county?
north of Kings. I think it would be Wise County.
Yeah.
But I hadn't heard that accent in a really long time, and it just like it was really nice. It struck me. But I asked her, "Do you know a guy named Jerry Hensley?" And she was just like, "Well, yeah, he's my cousin." It was really nice. And yeah, Carter's Fold is a really cool place if you ever get a chance to go. I actually, this must have been when I was just graduated from high school or something, maybe around 2004 or 2005. Last time I went there, before I played there last month, I got to see Johnny Cash's very last performance. And
Wow.
it was in that period of time, like, I think June died maybe 6 months before he did. And it was during that period of time. And it was the saddest thing. I mean, it was a great show. But you could tell, like, he was hurting really bad. That's when he came out with that album that had, like, that Nine Inch Nails
Oh, the Hurt
song
one? Yeah.
and stuff
that,
like
what is
that.
it, American? The one that Rick Rubin
Yeah,
produced.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what he was doing. So I got to see Johnny Cash's very last show there.
Wow.
It was really special to
Man.
me.
So, you know, as we're talking about this area, what was the music that did you grow up with this type of music sort of in the house and in your family, or what was the music that you were first into? I mean, obviously playing in drumline, so that was a thing, but like, what were you first drawn to as a young artist or young person?
Well, that's an interesting question. Like I said, my granddad is the only other musician I know of in my family.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose my parents, enjoyed things like the Beatles and anything else like that. I remember maybe when I was like 4 or 5 years old, my mom gave me some money to go pick out a cassette tape. And I picked one out just because I thought the cover looked cool.
Oh, the good old days.
And
when that could happen.
yeah, and I wore that cassette tape out, but it was Louis Prima.
No way.
Yeah.
Huh.
Hey Marie,
Yeah.
oh Marie. Yeah.
And Jump Jivin' Whale. That was
Jump, driving
yeah.
well. Yeah, all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I suppose, I don't know, when I started trying to learn the drums at a pretty young age, I liked things that seemed manageable to learn, for lack of a better term, like Beach Boys and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've got a pretty diverse and sometimes annoying musical taste.
Oh,
my
yeah?
friends tell me.
What does that mean?
I really Well, I don't know if you use Spotify at all, but if you do, you could subscribe to Stirl's Fave Songs. It's very heavily curated.
Huh.
And I think that if you played that list straight, it would probably last about 2 weeks.
No shit.
Yeah. And I don't know.
And it's well manicured? It's like, are you like all of the songs are not just like those are
there? I'm not putting entire albums on there.
Yeah.
I'm putting very specific songs on there.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe from what my friends tell me, some of the annoying ones, I like a lot of Indian music, and then sitars and stuff like that. And I also like minimalism, like Philip Glass and Steve Reich and folks like that. And sometimes it's too much for them. Also, one of my favorites is one of my absolute favorites in the world is Randy Newman. I think he's a genius, but some people just can't get over the voice.
Yeah.
You got a friend in me. So, and I guess on that same note, I really like Primus a lot because of the bass playing, but a lot of people just can't get over his weird voice, but I love it.
Oh yeah. Oh no. That's an amazing band because of the amount of space that exists, like sonically, in those recordings. I've always thought, because they end up like in the mixes, it's like there's always like a ton of room for the bass to do all of its shit, and the guitar is just so sparse and simple over the top.
And I don't know how Larry Lalonde does all those effects and stuff. Some of it's just it's just totally crazy.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of very Spartan guitar parts, especially when electric guitars are involved. Really only need 2 notes at a time to like get most of the sound you need out of an electric guitar, I feel.
Yeah, a lot of times less is more.
Yeah.
Speaking of Les Claypool.
Yeah. Oh my God. More is more is more is more. Well, it's funny because you started talking about Indian music, and you had mentioned before that you had done a lot of traveling in Asia. What? Question mark.
How did I decide to go there?
Yeah, or I don't know. Where were you in Asia? What was the draw toward that experience?
Let me think. I mentioned to you before we were on air that I'm a lawyer. Mm-hmm. One of my best friends, my college roommate, he's a web developer consultant, for lack of a better term. Mm-hmm. And there was one time I helped out his company with something, basically writing a demand letter to another entity that owed them money. And they got paid within 12 hours. And they were like, "Oh, thanks, Sterling. What do we owe you?" And I was like, "Don't worry about it. It's just a favor." And they said, "Well, how about a free first-class ticket to Asia?" And I was like, "Well, that sounds pretty good."
They just had one lying around, I take it?
Well, they, I think they sort of compiled all of their air miles or credit card points or something to help me out with this. And basically, this airplane ticket was over $11,000, and I paid $87,000.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's how my first trip to Asia started. And let's see, if I can remember my route, I'll have to show you the picture sometime because I mapped it all out at one point. But I think I went from Knoxville to South Korea to Thailand to Bali, Indonesia, Java, back to Bali. I called an audible at one point and went to Australia, Melbourne and Sydney for a while. and came back up to Singapore. Went to a bunch of different places in China. China's huge.
Yeah.
And went to Taiwan, to Vietnam, a few places in Vietnam, Myanmar. That was probably, I don't know. I wouldn't say that Myanmar was my favorite place, but that was the most interesting place.
Yeah.
That's where I saw actual poverty.
Yeah.
Because most of the time I was sticking to the cities, but and you probably know how they've gone through like some weird governmental coups and things like that recently. That was before then. I'm probably missing a few places. So then that was my first trip over there. My second trip.
How long was that trip? That sounds like a massive amount. Like it would take a massive amount of time to do those.
It was about 5 months. I really had no plan. I had just passed the bar exam and was, over with, normal life there for a second. So then the second time I was going to meet my friend. We had planned on going to India and Japan. And so I left March 6th, 2020.
Oh my gosh, one of those.
So if you remember, it was like at some point when I was, crossing the Pacific Ocean, the entire world shut down and I couldn't go to India anymore. And so me and my friend were like, all right, let's meet up in Thailand. We've both been there before, like we're familiar with it, and we'll figure out what to do next. And anyway, as you know, the entire world shut down. I got stuck in Thailand. My friend got stuck in China.
Oh my
I never even saw my friend. And so I was there for 4 months by myself. They had military enforced curfews at 7 p.m. They completely banned the sale of alcohol during my birth month of April. I pretty much finished Netflix. It was a learning experience. It was really weird being on the outside and reading all the news from back home at that point in time, because everything was so uncertain. I was like, oh God, and all of my friends and family are gonna die because stuff's going crazy. Like cities are being set on fire, and not to get political or anything, but the coronavirus and all that kind of stuff. It was extremely isolating, being literally thousands of miles from anyone that cares if you live or die. And I was just worried about all you guys back home because I didn't know what was going on.
Dude, my partner Kate and I were in, because I don't know how much you know about me. I was in New York City for 8 years. And so we went to her folks' place out in north of Huntsville, and we did that because it was just New York City was just shutting down around us. It literally felt like we're in an action movie. And all the explosions are going on. It was like that, but no explosions at that point. It was just I just remember driving through Manhattan and it being dead.
Yeah.
But it's funny that you mentioned that thing about being stuck in Asia, because that happened to, do you know Max Miller, the drummer?
That name sounds really familiar.
He actually played at the Build-A-Band thing.
Oh, okay.
The same thing happened to him. He was in China.
Oh, I think I remember talking to him about that night of the Build-A-Band, actually. Just very briefly.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I lived up in Hell's Kitchen for less than a year.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Why? And also, why?
It was, I went up there for a job opportunity and...
In law?
No, but this was this might have been, I'm trying to remember, this might have been the point where I had graduated law school, but I hadn't taken the bar yet.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just another situation where I was fed up with normal living and decided to, because I've been to New York a lot. I love it up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went up there just, I'd say I was probably there for 7 months and then came back.
Mm-hmm.
I just love Knoxville. It's a great place.
Dude, it's like, I tell people this all the time. I end up working, I work a couple days as a barista downtown, and so I'm constantly in those conversations with people who are in from Florida, and they're just like, oh, why did you move here? You know, what brought you here? And it's like, I don't know, like the fact that there's so many music, like little, like small enough music venues that I can see any size act that I would ever want to see easily, and that there's like a weirdly like supportive like music scene. It's like thriving, and it's like relatively cheap still.
Oh, I agree
like,
with you on that. It's
yeah.
great, you know, having come from Nashville and being a Nashville musician there for a while during college and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's night and day difference.
Yeah.
You know, musicians come out to support other musicians here, whereas there's sort of I don't know, I'm not trying to cast shade on anyone from Nashville or anything, but it seems like there's more of an arrogant kind of mindset there. It's not as community driven.
There you go.
I think
that's a huge part of it. And I mean, think about it like this. It's like a lot of people are in Nashville to take. You know what I mean? They're there to like take in experiences. They're there to like improve their career, and they're there to springboard. You know, in Knoxville,
they all want to become a star.
Right, exactly. They're all headed somewhere else. But like, man, it's so easy to just be like a welcomed part of the scene here in Knoxville.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like it's and there's a lot of like good supportive elements here. So it's
Well, I'm not trying to topsy-turvy this, but if we're having a conversation, what did bring you to Knoxville?
Supportive music scene, kind of.
Is your partner from Tennessee?
She's from Fayetteville.
Okay.
And so we, when I was touring a lot for about 3 years in there, and we would always come through East Tennessee, playing the Blue Plate. I met the landlord, the person who owns this house. She's incredible. Her name's Lori. And I met her after my first Blue Plate. We were out throwing guitars in the car, you know, and she comes into the parking lot there with her truck and is just like, hey, you know, you guys sounded great. I heard you on the radio. If you guys ever need a place to stay, I have this house in South Knoxville that I use as an Airbnb, but I also like house artists coming through playing on the Blue Plate.
Oh.
And that was this house.
Wow.
And then it was shut down. Obviously, Blue Plate wasn't happening during COVID, and you know, I reached out to her. I was like, hey, you know, we're looking for something to do that's different. You know, we're looking to get out of Fayetteville and, you know, move all my stuff down from New York. Our stuff, I guess, because Kate still had stuff up there too. But yeah, no, I loved it. And I actually, truth be told, I liked Chattanooga a lot better before I moved here.
Chattanooga's great. I love Chattanooga.
Dude, I love Chattanooga.
Yeah.
But it was just like we were priced out, and, you know, it's like this place was cheap, and turned out this is great.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
Well, we're happy to have you here.
Dude, happy to be here. You know, just trying to contribute, man, and make cool shit happen. But it's fun. Well, even to go back to like the sort of the Nashville thing, like in New York, that's something I immediately found was that it was like, I don't know, everyone was. See, in New York, I really liked it because people were assholes, but they weren't trying to hide that fact, you know? And to me, as a person, I just really appreciated that because it's like, I know why you're not paying any attention to me because I suck and I don't have anything to offer you, you know? Like, that's great. We're on the same page. And for that, it's like, I mean, a lot of my stuff I did in New York, which is I founded a folk festival and organization that was around community development. It had a place, you know, and it served a function, and that was all well and good. But like, I don't know, like I never gigged in New York. I never played because it's like I either couldn't get paying gigs or like couldn't find the stuff that I really wanted to do, and I didn't want to go around to the open mic circuit, which was just, I mean, it's grueling.
Well,
But
yeah.
did you end up playing when you were up there?
No, not at all. Not at all.
When were you
I did
there?
get to see Yoko Ono. It was like, I don't know, it would have been John Lennon's, I want to say 70th birthday or something. And I just happened to be walking through the park.
Huh.
And Yoko Ono, they had a big stage and a big thing going on.
Oh, that's
and so
funny.
that was unexpected and really cool. You know, like my drummer friend I was telling you about earlier, you know, he went to Musicians Institute in Los Angeles,
Yeah.
and he loves it. He loves Knoxville too, because one of the things he told me is to go out and gig in LA, you've actually got to pay
Oh,
to
yeah.
play, and then you've got to like sell tickets or something. It's like a completely different
Yeah.
mindset.
Oh, yeah, there were a ton of venues like that in New York.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So, yeah. I don't know. I just really appreciate Knoxville and our little music community that we have. I think it's great.
A lot of, as I tell people, it's bang for your buck here. It's like you really just get like you get, even if it's not the best of things, you get a lot. You get enough of all of those things you're looking for to make it like a really valuable place to live and be a part of the community.
Yeah.
Mm.
I will say I don't like fall as much as I do spring in Knoxville. Well, fall, I'm not a big sports ball fan.
Oh, there
So
you go.
all the butt chuggers and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But you put up with that.
But
you know?
but the spring, you know, that's when all the artistic things are happening.
Yeah.
I think, like big ears and things like that.
Yeah.
And I just really appreciate that a lot.
Do you fork up the change to go to Big Ears every year? Or do you volunteer, or do you just hang out, check? Because there's a bunch of free stuff, too. Right?
Yeah,
Like
there's a
3 or
bunch of
4.
free stuff. Like I didn't fork up the change this year, but I definitely made a point to go see that parade with the Preservation Hall Jazz
Oh,
Band
yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah.
And I saw Philip Glass one year.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
What was he doing? Was this the concert that, no, the friend of mine at the Met was telling me that, like, I think they announced that it was his last, they just did a Kenaton at the Met, and they were
At the
saying,
Met in New York?
yeah, and they were saying
Oh.
it was his last, I think maybe his last,
Oh, no.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, he's also another American treasure in my mind.
Oh my gosh.
I'd love to see him again. He was playing with a female, like, rock singer or something. It was a duet. I can't remember who it was, but yeah, it was just incredible. I love all that minimalist stuff, and like I said, you know, Randy Newman is over 80 years old now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see him as often as I can while I can.
Yeah. Yeah. I not for the reasons that you mentioned before, but I just have never done the dive. with Randy
You
Newman.
should.
Yeah.
You should.
Yeah. Where's the place to start?
I would start with the Sail Away album
Okay.
from the 70s.
Mhm.
Everyone knows the Toy Story song, of course, and stuff like that. And if you go on Spotify, it's kind of a mess because it's all Toy Story stuff,
Yeah.
right? But you gotta dive deep into his actual like solo albums from like the 70s and 80s.
Huh.
Yeah, it's really good. It's just really smart.
Yeah.
A little bit cynical.
So do you songwrite as well? Or are you mostly just
Yeah.
a player?
A little bit. I haven't really I've never really delved into like leading a band, but I've thought about it a lot. I would have enough material to do so.
Mm-hmm.
But
Or if you
No,
need
I-
another
I-
bass player and ukulele player. You know
Okay.
a guy.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
So, what is your writing like? What is that process like for you, and what ultimately are you piecing? Does it sound like Randy Newman meets Philip Glass, or is it what is it?
I guess it just depends. This is probably from my legal background, but I've got a really big problem with writing something and accepting that it's finished. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like I could
You're
edit.
afraid that someone in the audience is going to yell, "I object."
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Well, I feel like I could edit it, lyrically, and make things better
Yeah.
for the rest of my life. I'm never like really satisfied with something I come out with, and everyone else is like, "Oh, that's a great song," but I'm not. I've got plenty of friends who are extremely prolific. Right? They could write an album every week for the rest of the year, and be okay. And I'm just never satisfied
Yeah.
with myself in that regard. I don't know. There's probably a weird name for that phenomenon. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Now, do you find, are you that way of other writers? Excuse me. Jeez, that came out of nowhere. Are you that way with other writers? Like, do you find you're a pretty critical listener when it comes to, like, songs? When I go to this, I go to this 2-week playlist.
Like other people that I play with and like I'm like co-writing with and stuff.
Well, I kind of mean both. I mean, in general, there's like, you know what I mean? Because I feel like there's a way of songwriting that is like, man, we really got the vibe of this thing. And then then there's like the people who are trying to rewrite Wichita Lineman, or like, or trying to capture that, like, I'm trying to think what like a truly masterful song is, you know, or Yesterday, you know, that you're like constantly comparing songwriting to Yesterday, you know?
Yeah. I guess it depends on the situation. If I'm sitting down with somebody and we're trying to co-write something, I'd probably be more critical than if somebody comes and says, "Hey, I'm presenting you this song. See what you would like to add to it." And I take a different approach at that point because that's their song. I don't want to mess with it. But if I'm invited to, add constructive criticism or something, I definitely do. So change this word here or something, something like that.
So you basically turn that part of your mind off when someone does not present you the option to be.
Yeah, I'm just the bass player at that point.
Roots and fifths, man.
Yeah. I'm thinking about Yesterday. So I don't know if you got a chance to go or not, but
the Paul McCartney concert.
Me and my sister went to the Paul McCartney concert.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. We've sort of had a tradition of giving each other birthday gifts to Paul McCartney anytime he's around. So we've probably seen him at least half a dozen times. My favorite part about that concert is he said, "How many of you play the guitar?" Everyone's like, "Yeah." "How many of you know how to play Blackbird?" Everyone's like, "Yeah." And then he says, "You're all doing it wrong." Which is, there's some truth to that because, including myself, I think everyone I've ever heard play that song does it slightly differently.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah.
So I just thought that was like pretty snarky and really funny of him to say that.
God, funny dude. I've loved checking out a lot of interview footage of him because he's just so down to earth about, he's a freaking Beatle, but he's always so down to earth about the process and the experience and yeah. And I'm bummed. A guy from the coffee shop was telling me about that concert, and he was like, he went to it and he was like telling me about it, and he felt really bad, so he handed me because he was like telling me how much because it's expensive tickets, and so he's like, obviously I'm not going to go to pay for that with my coffee shop wages. So, but he handed me $20, and he was like, I want you to go put this toward going to see some live music. And I got to see the band Of Montreal.
Nice.
Do you know them?
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah, that's a great band.
That song, Groenlandic Edit, I always tell people, I think that is probably the best song that's been written the past 20 years.
Wow.
Do you ever listen to it?
I'll have to go back and listen to that.
Sit with it. Harmonically, and the way it develops, and the production, and then on top of it, it's just like, well, the real thing, I think, is the lyrics. It's just like masterfully presented.
Huh. Yeah, I'm going to have to delve into that. I've seen them, at Bonnaroo and things like that probably several times, but I guess I never listened to their recorded stuff a whole lot.
Oh, dude, that record, killer.
Wow. Okay.
Throwing it out there. I feel like I somehow mentioned this on every show at some point. Like I talk about, I just love them so much. Okay. No, we got some time. It's cool. What was I going to ask? We didn't talk about law for you and sort of this thing. Where did the decision to become a lawyer come into all this? Because clearly music was a big part of your life, but you studied sociology and music.
Yeah.
But when was the decision to study law, and what's that experience for you?
Well, I suppose been a musician as long as I can remember. That's not going to change.
Mm-hmm.
I've accepted that fact. Went to, like you said, I got a bachelor's degree in sociology and American music. And after that, I guess there was a little bit of pressure, like wondering, what's next? Because what do you do with a sociology degree? Can you be a professional sociologist? I'm not really sure. So it became a choice of become a teacher in some regard or do something else. And I also had a criminology minor, so I was kind of new about that, and I don't know, law school became an option, and I've never, a lot of my colleagues, that's what they wanted to do their entire life. I never really wanted to be a lawyer. I never even thought that was a possibility. I still don't know if I want to be a lawyer, but here we are. And that's when I moved to Knoxville, was 2011. Came here for law school and sort of practically stopped playing music there during that period. It takes a whole lot of time. And I wouldn't say I enjoy it. It's stressful at times. I do like the intellectual and sort of creative aspect of being a lawyer.
I've never heard that said before. I enjoy the creative aspect of being a lawyer. I can imagine, but what specifically is that for you?
Well, you can't let that profession suck out your creativity. You can't just, what would be the word? You can't just become complacent and go with the flow and be part of the good old boys, because things need to change.
Yeah.
Continuously. That's the point of the law, I think. So I guess that's what I mean by that. Be sort of creative in
So it's almost like there's a bigger picture sort of element to all of this, where it's like you're trying to seek opportunities for the law to represent the beliefs of people maybe and update, and so that's where like you're looking into the written word to find those gaps to like.
Right. Well, yeah, that's true. I didn't get into it for the money or anything. I got
Right.
into it just sort of, my personal philosophy is to help people that don't have the means to help themselves.
Yeah.
So that's what I do a lot of the
Yeah.
time.
What type of law do you practice?
Well, I call it door law. Whatever comes through the door.
Ah.
But I do a lot of indigent criminal defense, which means, you've got a right to an attorney. If you can't afford one will be appointed to you.
That's you.
I'm one of those
Yeah.
guys. And then also do a lot of wills and contracts and done some trademarks, divorces, things like that. I've probably worked for free way more than I should. I'm probably the poorest lawyer in Tennessee. But, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Well,
Yeah.
is it? It's the poorest lawyer in Tennessee is still at least making at least as much as the maybe median musician in Tennessee. Maybe.
Yeah, I stay pretty busy with music, so
Yeah.
I would definitely consider myself a part-time lawyer, part-time musician.
Yeah.
So, and especially now that things have started opening back up, I've been doing
Playing
a whole lot more music,
Yeah.
obviously, than the last couple of years.
Yeah. There's a joke to be made, and I'm going to let you make it at some point later about your original band. That's going to be something that's a law-themed band. A
Oh,
maybe that's the thing, a law-themed cover band, like, and it's all lawyers that play in it or something. I don't know.
well, one of my bands that I play in, Roman Reese and the Cardinal Sins, Roman, the leader of the band, and Michael Davis, the guitar player of the band, are also both lawyers, friends of mine.
That's like you gotta have
And
like
so-
an alter ego.
Yeah,
band.
my friend Nathan, he's an honorary lawyer. So I was thinking, like, what about the irrevocable instruments? Or something like that.
I'm not up in my law terminology enough to come up with anything clever, but throwing it out there, balls in the air.
Yeah, okay.
Do something with it. Well, speaking of, let's talk about this because you sent me a text with a laundry list of people that you play with around here. You're a pretty in demand dude. What are some of those bands that we're gonna find out in the world and see you holding down low end
Okay.
or maybe high end on the banjolele?
Well, Electric Darling is a female-led rock band that's pretty popular. We've had some new recordings coming out monthly, all year practically.
And you're playing bass on all those recordings?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. How long have you been with him?
Yeah, probably 4 or 5 years at this point.
Wow.
I wasn't the original bass player. I don't know if you know Matt Nelson.
Yeah. Also was a guest on the show.
He's my favorite bass player in Knoxville. he was the former bass player for them, and I think he had some other stuff going on, and I got to fill in, and it's kind of stuck. Knox County Jug Stompers is a jug band. If you're unfamiliar with that term, it's basically music from the southeast region from about the 1920s and 30s, sort of like bluegrass instruments, but it's not bluegrass. It's more like ragtimey, more African American influenced old-time music, if that makes sense. And that's what I play the banjolele. That's who I play the banjolele with. Colonel Williams House Band. It's a band that I started several years ago. We haven't played in a while, but I'm really, really proud of our record that we came out with called Keepsakes.
Is that on Spotify?
Mm-hmm. And I would suppose it's kind of Americana country. There's a band called Tractorhead, which is a rock and roll band. Got classics like Drinking and Mowing. And let's see. What else did I say? Southern Cities is kind of an indie rock band. I can't remember what I texted. I'm not going to be able to remember. There's so many.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's good. It's like, I guess we can tell people listening into this that go out and see some live music. There's a good chance.
Yeah. I get hired for random stuff here and there. I played at Trailhead on Friday with some dudes. I just met the drummer the night before, and we did like 3 hours of Grateful Dead songs.
All right.
Random stuff.
Yeah. The life of a working bass player.
Yeah, well, it's the easiest instrument. Anyone can do it. There's only 4 strings.
Yep. One note at a time. Just don't complicate it, and you'll be
Sometimes
fine.
2 notes.
Yeah, I mean, but really. Oh, man. Well, hey, we're reaching the end of our time here.
Oh, okay.
Man, it's been
a great time. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, yeah. It's been awesome to get to know you, and yeah, I have a funny feeling we'll have a lot of good conversations down the road.
Yeah, when are we going to jam?
I don't know. Maybe immediately after this, I'll bring up my uke and we'll see what happens. But, man, Stirling, thanks so much. Is there any central place that we can send people to find any of your... Do you have a website, or we'll just have people check out those other bands?
Yeah, just check out the other bands or look me up on Facebook. You'll probably see some band-related things.
Cool. Sounds good. Stirling, thanks for being here. Let me just say once again a special thank you to Raven Records and Rarities, as well as Hutch and Howard Realty of Keller Williams. Folks, we could not do this without you. This has been another installment of Meet Music Knoxville. I am your host, Nick Horner. Stay tuned for more great music, and we'll catch you in about a month. Thanks.
Lady lullaby, wrap me up in melodies. Sing a song to pass me by, bring my dreams back to you. Flower bloomed completely. Bumblebees and precious nerves blown away with the leaves as they waved goodbye. Found it was a curse.